Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Limón. I'm the Chief of Staff at Carbine. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. For today, what I would like to do is to tell you a little bit about the history of Carbine, which is a company that I work for. Maybe I'll start by talking a little bit about myself, and then finally that'll bring us to a topic which is AI in emergency response and how Carbine is leading the market in this field. So like just quickly, so like I said, my name is Daniel. I joined Carbine 3.5 years ago to lead strategy for Amir, who's a CEO, and previously to that, I worked as a consultant for McKinsey and Company, specializing in technology and private equity related engagements. So let me tell you a little bit about how the company started because it's a very relatable story. So Amir, our CEO, was at the beach 9 years ago now, and he was robbed. His bag was stolen. He still had his phone left. He called 911, and they had a hard time. Basically, the whole process was suboptimal. Okay, so first of all, they couldn't find him because he didn't have a physical address. He was on the beach. Second, basically, until they got there, it took time. The person who got on the scene, so this is the first responder, had second-hand information, which was passed down from the call taker to a dispatcher to the responder, and the whole process was suboptimal. And the first thoughts that he had after that was, how come when I call an Uber today, they know everything about me. They know exactly where I am. They know my air conditioning preferences, music preferences, and I, as a citizen, can see exactly where I'm arriving when they're arriving. But when I make that critical call to 911, there's very few basically technological elements available. Okay, and today, and this is true until a few years ago, but 911 calls work the same like in the 1970s or late 1960s when 911 was invented. Okay, and this is, here the audience is global, so I'll say, in the US there's 240 million 911 calls a year. Okay, so it's basically every citizen calling 911 almost once a year, and it's a pretty obviously it's a global problem depending on the crime rates of the country, and some countries have one number, like in the US there's 911. Other countries have many numbers for fire, medical, and police, etc. But at the end of the day, the problem is quite common, that there are no adequate solutions with today's technology that are specifically adapted to emergency response. Okay, so here on the screen, what you see is a few pain points. Okay, so obviously, we started with this one robbery, but then we started exploring, and just some things that we've discovered. So actually, at Carbine, we run the largest 911 global survey. Okay, which we basically run with the hundreds of 911 agencies in collaboration with Nina, and we track the pain points, and we track solutions that we're offering the market and how we're helping solve them. So for example, like today, if you talk to 911 directors, they will tell you that their number one issue is short staffing. Okay, and this is again a global problem. Hard to find young talent. People want to work in less stressful jobs, and the old generation is retiring. Okay, so for example, like UI, having modern platforms with modern UI is a good way that helps to like attract and retain talent. Okay. Then a second thing is non-emergency calls. So this is whether it's people calling in 911 to report, I don't know, like their trash hasn't been picked up, or if it's people calling 911 about a noise complaint, or maybe it's just a pocket dial, your iPhone dialing 911 by mistake. So those are flooding, basically those types of calls are about 50% of calls to 911 today in the US, and they are basically inundating these centers with calls, and they don't have capacity to handle them as is. Okay. And then finally you get into, and I'll get into this at the end, but there are pain points that in the past weren't really, you know there wasn't any consideration of how to address them, but today with technology, there's, especially like AI enabled technology, there's new way to address them. Okay, so I'll give you an example. In the US, 9% of calls to 911 are in a foreign language. Okay, so almost 1 in 10 calls, and most of these are in Spanish. Okay, so today you have already in the market for other use cases like B2B use cases, you have real-time translation capabilities, but no one has really worked on adapting them into the emergency space until now. Okay, so yeah, so basically, like going into like our kind of like mission statement. So emergencies, multiple elements. It's a huge market. It's a huge global market. We are basically, as Carbine, we're focused at being the focal point between the interaction of citizens and their interaction with emergency responders. Okay, so we're that platform. Basically, think when you dial 911, the call comes in. It comes into a Carbine platform. Yeah, just a little bit about the company. So we're no longer a startup, or depending where you define a startup, but we're 180 people. We have offices in Israel where we have an R&D. We have 100 people in the US. We have a presence in Mexico as well, with an office with 15 people. Today we handle around 16 million calls a year, and we're deployed in some of the largest centers in the US. Okay, like Miami, New Orleans, and Atlanta, listed on the slide here. In terms of our solutions, so I'll just give you a brief overview of what we do. So what I've mentioned until now is a solution called Apex. Okay, so Apex, think like your telephony, your whole handling system. Okay, so your call handling system, sorry. So we provide that end to end with all the call handling functionality. And what differentiates us is that, one, we have extremely high SLAs, okay, that we're able to do because we're on the cloud. So basically, unlike other systems that are used more for like customer support or stuff like that, 911 systems can never be down. So we invested a lot of time in that. And second is really the introduction of all the AI-based capabilities, okay, that we can do because of our cloud native tech stack. And I'll get into 3 of those later in the presentation. Okay, but think of Apex like you have an old telephony system that you've had since 1970. You can replace that and put in Apex instead. Okay, and we get rid of all your hardware for you because we're a cloud native solution. Universe is like an Apex Lite, okay, solution that we provide. So basically the idea there is, think like you're a 911 director, maybe you're a bit risk averse, maybe you don't have budget now to replace your whole telephony system. We can come in, okay, and install Universe on your computer. And what Universe is, it's basically pop-ups that for every call that comes in now, you will get their location. You can get video directly from the citizen. You can get the message. You can send the messages, okay? So for example, like if you're speaking to a woman in a domestic violence situation and she's unable to speak on the phone, then the 911 responder can text her, can silent text her, disabling her notifications remotely to say like, hi, let me know that everything's okay. If you need help, please type here and we'll send someone. Okay, that's that. Then we have a suite of API services, okay, which is basically like, it's 2 elements. So one, we believe, okay, that any center in the world, regardless of what solution and what solutions they go with, should be able to benefit from our capabilities. Okay, and that's why we invented this thing called ECAS, which is Emergency Communications as a Service, which basically allows you to pick certain Carbine capabilities and plug them into your existing solutions. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So next week, as of this recording, but next week I'm going to go to Spain for the largest European Emergency Number Association conference. It's the largest 911 conference in Europe. So some of these countries, for example, they have emergency services that already use current telephony systems that they're not looking to change. So we can plug in, we can give them translation, or we can give them video as a service or location as a service directly embedded into their platform. Okay, so that's that. Then we have a service called Carbine Connect, okay, which is actually for all of you working in corporates. This is the most relevant one. So, what we said is around 2 years ago, we said, okay, we have all these great solutions for 911, but what if we offered similar services directly to employees of large companies? Okay, so in Mexico, for example, we're pushing this product called Connect, which basically allows a corporation to protect its employees via simple software integration. So how does it work? Like think, you are Joe. Joe works for Google in Mexico. Okay. So Google can buy this solution for all its employees. And all it is, it's basically a link that says, what do you, Joe, want to happen when you dial 911? Okay. Do you want your, 2 emergency contacts to be alerted? Do you want them to get your location? Do you want them to get video from the scene? Do you want your company to know, do you want Google to know that you dial 911 so they can follow up with you? Do you want 911 to get additional information, like that you have allergies or other medical conditions automatically when you place the call? Do you want 911 to see a picture of you when the call is placed? Okay, so this is basically like a portal that you set up once as an employee and that you forget about, and then it activates basically a bunch of different things when you dial 911. So think kind of, it's like signing up to an insurance policy, and we sell it and integrate it as part of like large companies onboarding. Okay, So that's the API services. And finally, we have this command and control category. Okay, there we have a solution called Bridge Desk, which is basically a bit different from everything I've spoken about. So we developed Bridge Desk for a company called Global Medical Response, which is the largest ambulance provider in the world. And what they do with it is basically they have a large screen, okay, in their command center. And on the screen, they can see all their assets, okay? So they can see all their ambulances, they can see all their airplanes and helicopters, and they can basically layer into that map things that are happening. Okay, so for example, like severe weather events, they could potentially see shootings, and all these kind of stuff. And then basically they can see, okay, for a certain area, there's an event happening. These are the number like of ambulances you have in the area. And in the future, we're also working to add notifications based on that. Okay, so what does notifications mean? It means, let's say you have an area in California that gets fires every year. The bridge disk will be able to predict and tell GMR, hi, like there's this area where you have, fires on average once every August, and you don't have enough firefighters in the area or ambulances in the area to deal with a mass event. Okay, so that's bridge disk. Okay, so here, actually, I wanted to show a video, but I'm not sure how to do it on this platform. Okay, never mind. So this is, as part of our Apex platform, what you can see here is our real-time translation capabilities. Okay, so this is what we do today is we have two-way translation. So when a call comes in a foreign language, okay, so for example, like you're calling in, let's say a tourist or an immigrant, okay, that's actually most relevant in Texas, where we have most of our customers for this product. An immigrant crosses the border, calls in, I need help in Spanish. So you will say necesito ayuda, and on the other side, you will hear I need help. Okay. By the way, the citizen calling in will hear an automated message. Hi, like we recognize that you're calling in Spanish. Please speak slowly. Your call is being translated in real time. Okay, so that's the end vision for this product. Today it's already working just with the translation element, and this saves basically 911 agencies and emergency response a lot of time and money. Okay, because today basically the solution, if you get a foreign language call, there's a service called Language Line. Okay, which is like basically you as the call taker conference in someone who speaks Spanish or speaks the language, and then they translate and they charge you like $4 a minute, okay, for the service. So it's, first of all, it's a bit slow because you have to conference in someone. Also, sometimes Spanish is pretty easy, but you can imagine maybe that there's other languages that are like harder to detect. And then you need to do all this, and the citizen needs to stay on the line when they don't really understand what's going on, and then the call begins getting translated manually. Okay, so we do that all completely automatically. Okay, like a second feature I'll talk about is emergency call triaging, which I find very cool. So here the idea is today 911, they answer all the calls, and this is true everywhere. They answer all your calls chronologically, okay? Which in theory makes sense, right? But there should be some element of like the sense of gravity, right? Of a situation, like how bad something is. So, and especially, sometimes 911 already knows about something. Because think if there's like now an accident on a highway, okay? Probably many, many people are going to come in to say the same thing, okay? And that's going to be a problem because the lines are going to get clogged. And then someone who's maybe getting robbed somewhere else will need to wait a long time on the line because all the telecommunicators are dealing with calls about an accident, okay? An accident they already know about. So here the idea, and this we already started this, and it's installed in New Orleans. The idea is that you're able to geofence an area. Okay, so for example, like we recognize there's abnormal call volume coming in from a highway. We understand there's an accident. We literally allow the supervisor to kind of draw a circle around that area. And now every call that comes in about the area will hear an automated message saying, "Hi, if you're calling about the accident, feel free to hang up unless you have additional information, because we already know about it and we're on the incident." Okay. So obviously this will reduce wait times because a lot of people are going to hang up, but it also gives you a good experience as a citizen, okay? Because you know that basically your city or your jurisdiction knows about a certain incident in the area and is handling it, okay? And yeah, that's that. And then the last thing I'll speak about that we're doing that is also quite cool is this element of basically AI call routing for admin lines, okay? So today 911 globally they basically they deal with, as you can see here, 99% of them deal with both emergency and non-emergency calls. Okay, so for example, if you're looking to get information about the city or the trash pickup or or I don't know, again, the noise complaint, yeah, or like sanitary services, whatever, you will call a 10-digit number. Okay, so this is like a regular number associated with your city. But what citizens don't realize is that these same calls are basically answered by the same 911 telecommunicators. Okay, and usually what happens is that, for example, let's say I have a phone. I'm a telecommunicator in New York, and someone calls in to report, that their trash hasn't been picked up. I'm dealing with that, and then a real 911 call comes in, okay, from the actual 911 line. What I will do is tell the person who called about the trash to hold. I'll pick up the other phone, deal with it, and then go back. So it's a bad experience for people who called up for admin lines. So we developed basically a solution that is kind of like, I don't want to say an IVR because it's not. It's because IVR means like it's like a predefined menu. But here the idea is basically you speak to a bot and you tell the bot what's going on, and we specifically train this for non-emergency use cases in 911, and you can explain what's going on, and they can either handle most of the requests or at least transfer you to the right person. Okay, and this tool is also like, what's cool about it is that basically we give the emergency contact center, if you will, so the 911 agency, we give them like a simple like interface with which they can train this tool as well. So for example, they can say, okay, if someone says the words trash, if someone says the word about garbage, etc., transfer them to this number. Okay, and then and then it takes them to the sanitary department of the city. So it's like a self-serve tool for managing admin line calls. Yeah. So, and then again, like I started with this, but everything we do is basically through the lens of 911. And 911, they really, at the end of the day, they have two objectives. Okay, and this emergency services everywhere is the same. They want to give you, as a citizen, a response as quickly as possible, but they also want to give you a response that's as accurate as possible. Okay, because if they send firefighters with the wrong gear, or if they send an ambulance and you need one ambulance and you needed two, then it's not an optimal response. So that's basically what we try to do. Okay, and we've basically been able to reduce call handling times and increase accuracy everywhere where we've worked. And yeah, and that's it. Like if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me at daniel.l@carbine.com. Also, just generally speaking, like if you're looking for, if you know any 911 agencies globally that are looking to incorporate these types of products, we'd be happy to speak with them, because it's true that today basically most of our focus in the US, with some pockets in like Mexico, Colombia, and Israel. And yeah, and finally also, like, there's the solution that I talked about at the beginning, Carbine Connect, which is a great way for companies to protect their employees. So if you think that's maybe relevant for your organization, feel free to get in touch as well. Okay, thank you.